one of the things that's happening that's making things look more contentious than they are is that the mainstream media is under such assault by the up-and-coming media forms, including people like you, that as their financial models deteriorate and as their journalistic standards take a hit and as they lose their fact checkers and their time to be careful with the stories, they concentrate more on exaggerating the extremes to attract attention. And so, there was an article published in the Atlantic Monthly about a month ago showing that, and it depends on how you calculate these things, but that the radical leftists and the radical right-wingers are only about 5% of the population on each side. And that the vast majority of Americans consider themselves something approximating the relatively silent majority. And so I don't think that things are polarized as badly as they seem. And it is also the case right now that if you poll people and ask them about the conditions of their life in the United States, they tend to say that they're doing quite well, but that other people aren't. And so I think maybe, I don't know this for sure, but I think maybe that the technological pressure that's being put on the mainstream media is driving extreme political views as a means of gathering the attention of a shrinking market share.
That's a very interesting take on it, and I wonder how detrimental that is to us as a whole, because we are constantly dealing with this clickbait nonsense headline, and everything is a dispute, everything's a war.
Well, it's nerve-wracking.
Yes.
I noticed this years ago because I really stopped watching the news 25 years ago, although I've been heavily involved in it the last 2 years, because I noticed that most of what passed for news wasn't. Because my sense was, well, if it isn't important a month from now, it was never important. And almost everything that's news is like important right now.
Yeah.
And so I tried to stay away from that. It was better for my peace of mind. And I often recommended to my clinical clients who were depressed and anxious that they shield themselves from the news as much as possible. But now the news is everywhere, right? It's everywhere. It's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's YouTube. It's like we're just inundated by it. It's like CNN on steroids. It's 24-hour news cycle, and it's produced by everyone, whether they're informed or not, and it's really high emotion, and I think that is making things look a lot worse to us than they actually are.
I think it's also similar to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to reading comments on Instagram or Twitter. I just think there's just an amount of data that's incomprehensible. I don't think you can handle it. I don't think you can navigate it. You can't navigate that many relationships. I mean, these are the reason why we have this Dunbar's number in our head. If you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, in your case, 1 million followers that are constantly interacting with you, it's going to fucking drive you mad.
Yeah. Well, you don't even know what to do with it. Because I don't even know what my ethical obligation is to my Twitter followers, because there's 1 million people following me.
You can't react to all of them.
No, definitely. Well, certainly I know one limitation, which is that having it drive me insane is probably not a good outcome for anyone. Well, except for those who hope that I would crawl back under my rock, let's say.
This is a personal thing, right? Because they're responding, and the mentions are to you personally, but in a lesser way, perhaps. But it's still also overwhelming. Is just the sheer amount of information that's available constantly about everything. Yeah. There's 1 million stories every day about every single thing that's going on in your life.
Well, everywhere on the whole planet, yeah.
And how are you supposed to navigate that? How are you supposed to get through life and concentrate on things that are truly meaningful for you in the present moment without being completely detached from the outside world?
Yeah,
it's this balance that people try to find that is so elusive. Yeah. It's so hard to figure out how much to watch. Yeah. How much of this political process do I pay attention to?
Yeah, well, that's the big technological challenge.
Yes.
We thought, when I was a kid, we thought, oh my God, kids are sitting in front of the television 4 hours a night. It's like, well, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, right. Now it's all day long.
No kidding.
With their phones all day long.
Yeah, and the phones are so much more powerful than television that it's like a typewriter compared to a computer.
Yes.
It's so we don't know how to adjust to that psychologically, but it's even worse than that, because as soon as you adjust to the degree that you do, the technology changes on you.
Right. So it becomes more immersive.
Sure.
And it's always leading in that direction.
Yeah. So it's a real, I see this especially with parents who have teenage kids. It's like they know the phones aren't. I've been talking to some teenagers lately about maybe these are kids that are getting bullied on social media. It's like I think, well, when I was 14, it's kind of a rough time of life, and you go to school and you've got your friends and you've got your enemies, and then you come home and your friends aren't there and neither are your enemies. Right. You're outside. There's an outside of that.
Yeah.
But now on social media, there's no outside. And the one kid I was talking to had moved schools and is doing quite well in the new one. But the people from the person's old school are still after them on social media. So, and you think, well, just don't use your phone. It's like, yeah. You tell that to your teenager. You try not using your phone for a whole day.
Yeah.
You think, well, the teenager's going to be able to manage the phone. It's like, no, they're not. You can't manage the phone. Nobody can manage the phone.
Well, it's not just teenagers. My middle daughter is 10 years old, and all of her friends have phones.
Yep.
All of them.
Yep.
There's like 2 of her friends that don't have phones.
Yep.
And they come over the house, and we have a rule at our house, you can't use a phone. Like once you get inside the house, there's no phone. So their friends come over the house, they want to like constantly be on their phone, and we say like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And they look at you like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, this is my life.
Yeah.
My life is my phone. They want to make Twitter posts and Instagram, and they want to do Facebook, and they want to Snapchat with each other with bunny ears on, and these kids are just doing this all day long.
Well, and they are mastering the technology. Yes. That's the other thing. It's not surprising that they're trying to adapt to it. But
it's happening at a really early age.
Yeah.
Because if you're giving your kid a phone, you're not putting any parental filters on it. You're allowing that kid to have full access to Google and the World Wide Web, and they're just going to...
If you give your kid a phone and you don't think they'll know how to use the phone better than you within a year, you're a fool.
It's true.
They're gonna have that thing figured out in ways that you haven't even imagined. So you're not controlling it. That's for sure.
It is a very extraordinarily unprecedented time to sort of navigate this world, and I don't think there's not been civilizations have had to deal with worse things, right, in terms of violence and famine and disease, but I don't think anyone's had to deal with such a radically transformative medium like the internet.
We have this range of possibilities. Well, and you ain't seen nothing yet.